So when you hear the name Roger Corman, what's the first sort of movie you think of? Exploitation? Women in prison movies shot in the Philippines? Monster flicks? B-movies? Well, you'd be right on all occasions. But I bet the one genre that you didn't think of was a socially, politically charged movie about segregation in the 60s. That's right, tonight on Video Ferox, we're going to be watching The Intruder with William Shatner. So let's roll the trailer, and we'll be right back.
This man, take a good look at him. He's a specialist. He knows exactly how to turn this quiet town into a hell of violence.
The Negroes will literally, and I do mean literally, control the South. Are you willing to fight down to the last ditch and keep fighting till this thing is over?
The Intruder. He made the sleepy town of Caxton his town for his reason. He played on their fears and their hatreds. This town became a headline for The Intruder. He brought an end to innocence. He exploited a woman's weakness. He turned neighbor against neighbor.
How come you walk that bunch of black niggers to our white school?
I don't see anything I do is any business of yours.
And sooner or later it would happen. He would make it happen.
Over here. All right.
You were alone with a white girl in the basement of the school, but you didn't try to do anything. Is that what you expect us to believe, nigger? Let's take it!
That was the trailer to The Intruder from 1962.
Did we like it?
Did you like it?
Did we like it? Yes, it's a good film. I have to say that this is for the audience. This isn't a film that is entertaining.
No, God, no,
It's
no.
very informative. If you want to know or get an idea of what 50s, 60s South was, this is a good movie for it.
I think that's the reason that this was the one movie that Roger Corman lost money on, because the message is very, very on the nose. But the thing is, you have to occasionally be on the nose. You can't be very subtle when you're trying to address racism in the South.
Yeah. One of the things that's really good about this film is that you get to see that Roger Corman isn't a schlock filmmaker.
Oh, he has style. Okay, some of it occasionally he's stealing from Reggie Rosenthal's playbook when he's shooting low up on the Shat at the courthouse steps. And I mean, clearly that's what she did for Hitler to give him power and emphasis and gravitas. Okay, so yeah, he's stealing that, but it's still an effective shot.
It is that, but I would say that it's also what you get from school. When you're being taught how to shoot scenes for drama, for comedy, whatever, I think a part of that is probably he knows of it from the education he received for filmmaking.
So absolutely go check this thing out. It's fucking great. And let's just move on to the spoilers because we got a lot to talk about. So the other name that you are going to recognize from this production, above and beyond the Shat and Roger Corman, is Charles Beaumont. And probably not a name that is super familiar for folks, but if you've seen like The Twilight Zone, you've got at least a 40% chance that one of his scripts was the episode you saw.
Yes. And although his middle initial isn't in it, William F. Nolan is actually an actor in front of the camera in this film. So it's kind of like, wow. Somebody who prolific in filmmaking is in front of the camera.
And this movie is, like we said, quite a departure for Roger Corman, where up to this point, I think he had already done like 10 or 15 movies in his resume so far. And he has done like a couple of the Poe movies for AIP. So he had a lot of experience under his belt. I think the Wasp Woman and Little Shop of Horrors was right around this time. They were either bookending.
It was close to
Yeah.
it. This film was the film that told him that he needed to go for making entertaining films, not passion projects. This was a passion project.
So the story is pretty simple. William Shatner comes into town, and he is this... Well, okay, there's no way to whitewash this. He's a fucking racist. Absolutely to the core. And that's really weird, that seeing William Shatner say, you know, do you know the way to get to Niggertown?
Yeah.
Captain fucking Kirk says, where's Niggertown?
He gets a cab ride to Niggertown, and we see a neighborhood that is largely, the only people living there are black people.
It's essentially the slums of this little West Texas town.
And even then, it's not really slummy. It's not developed. It's not luxurious, but there is a corner market, there's a gas station. We see that there is something there.
It kind of has that feel like Harlem or Watts does in the 70s, where, yes, it's still a community, but it's kind of shabby, but it's not.
Yeah.
And Roger Corman, he actually shot this movie in the South for that authentic feel. And he knew that his script was pretty volatile and pretty vile. And so he had a dummy script prepared, and he would hand it to the locals and say, here, so this is what we're shooting, and this is the sanitized version. Because the second they found out what was happening, they were like, no, this is no good.
Yeah.
So William Shatner, his mission in town is he is going to stir up trouble against the integration, which is happening on, like, he arrives on Friday, and the segregation laws are coming into effect on Monday. So that old lady that was in the hotel was also really disturbing too, where she's all like, well, yeah, we've got some niggers going into town, and she is absolutely the sweet grandmother who is throwing around the N-bomb.
And she's not a hired actor.
No.
She's a local. She utters the memorized dialogue, yes, but she's like totally comfortable in her skin saying the lines. So it's like, wow.
The whole town is like this. Most of the extras in the movie were in fact locals. There's very few folks that were actual actors. The Shat, William F. Macy. You said there were a bunch of folks that were awesome.
There's a handful of the married couple in the hotel who are always bickering. The rich tycoon.
Oh yeah, he is an absolute name that you will use the second he appears on screen. It's like, I know that dude.
If you've seen the Raymond Burr, Perry Mason, and you've seen a lot of it, you're going to recognize all the actors because they all appeared in Perry Mason.
And so the Shatner, he goes around town and he starts stirring up trouble. A little poking, a little prodding here. Well, what do you think about all these niggers that are coming into school? You don't like that, do you? It's like, yeah, I don't like it, but it's the law. Whose law is it? And you know, implying white man's law and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And he hooks up with the rich dude, and he's like, well, I came in from the north, and I'm with the William Birch Society or something like that.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's like, well, why don't we go to the newspaper that you own, and let's run an article saying we don't like black people, or something like that.
The editor, the guy who runs the paper, he's racist, but there's no point to, I can't vilify people who have done no wrong.
He's racist because it's just more systemic for him. His wife, you know, after he starts coming around to the point of view of hey, this isn't right, and we should let these kids go to school, and he's having these doubts, and his wife's like, I'm a little concerned about the thoughts that you're having. These are bad thoughts. And he asks her straight up, it's like, why? Why do you think like this? And she says, I don't know. Because it's just been bred into them for generations that you just hate the black people.
Yeah.
So when it gets confronted like that, they're like, ugh.
A lot of people today, as back then, it's just programming.
So when you say William Shatner, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Oxford, comma.
Stuff like that. He traditionally, historically, plays to the fucking nines. Except here. He plays it smarmy, he plays it smooth, he plays it very casual, he doesn't go big. Except occasionally when it's appropriate for the script for him to go fucking big.
Yes. Part of this point in William Shatner's career is he's done some television, but predominantly he's been stage. And it was Broadway, not just secondary theater, backstreet stuff. Shatner had been doing Broadway. And he had gone to California because he's like, it's time to
Step up his game.
Step up his game. And yeah, that's how Corman found him. And one of the other elements to it is that where you get to see it, but you don't feel it, is Shatner has Shakespeare experience from when he started out as an actor in Canada.
And that's where the going big comes from, because when you're in Shakespeare, it's big or nothing.
Yeah. If anyone going to watch this film, I mean, you hear, oh, Shatner's in it, don't expect Shatner.
It must have been really weird for a Canadian Jew to go down to the South and absolutely just start throwing around all these racist epithets.
Now, in subsequent interviews that were done in the last decade or so, and where Shatner talks about the movie, he doesn't touch upon that. He just talks about the production and just that he really was behind it. Apparently, it was a revelation, a recent revelation, because it's like, I would have paid Corman to be in the film, and Corman's like, what?
I don't know if it was hard for him to do this scene, but I know watching this movie was extremely uncomfortable for me. There was this one scene where, so it's integration day, and it's Monday, and the 10 students are now going to go to the white school. And they start walking along with like one kid, and then a couple more trickle in, and a couple more, and eventually you've got these 10 black dudes walking down the street. And the casual racism and the passive-aggressive actions of the town people, they don't ever actually get violent, but they're all like kind of nudging them out of the way on the street corner. And okay, I'm seeing this through the lens of white privilege, so I can't really comment, but just that scene showcasing a racism was just really fucking uncomfortable.
Our main black character, Joey, he gets home, he comments to his mother like, how many times are you going to iron that shirt? Because she's ironing a shirt, and it's one of his shirts because she wants him to look his best. And his brother is listening to some music, and it sets him off. Turn that off. Blah blah blah. And it's the conversation that comes into play there that also makes me wince. It's just cringy. Is the fact that this kid's reaction to the problems that are going on, and this little kid says to his older brother, "You should get a gun." It's just like, oh my God.
The Black Panthers had to come from somewhere.
And I'm like, oh, wow.
And the other factor in that conversation was Joey was very resigned to his fate. He was very much, this is the way it is, and we tried and we failed, and now, oh no, it was his uncle that said that. They were on the porch, and he was like, why am I doing this? And his uncle's like, just don't make waves, boy. You're causing trouble for the rest of us.
Yeah, because the uncle has probably seen some horrific shit already.
Oh, absolutely. The other really uncomfortable scene that they had. Well, actually, the whole fucking movie's uncomfortable, but the one that stood out to me was a very small scene where Ellie, the newspaper man's daughter, after the attack, she comes home and she's an absolute wreck. And I think it's like her father-in-law, I think. He is like, how is he doing? It's like, oh, well, he's all messed up. It's like, well, he shouldn't have been doing that because he's going to make me look bad to the boys. What am I going to say? How do I hold my head up in this town as a white guy that he's siding with black people?
Yeah.
And that was just like, whoa, shit, that was unexpected.
That's where her turn happens, where she begins to realize that everything that she's been manipulated between that idiotic nonsense earlier in the film where Kramer gets her into the car and she's like, if my father knew about this, kiss, kiss, kiss. If my uncle knew about this, kiss. Like, oh my God.
Oh, and the other scene that I never thought I would expect to see in my life was Shatner raping a woman.
Yeah, that would be Griffin's wife.
Yeah.
And the thing that's really silly about it is that it's actually played off as a seduction. Because after that, she leaves her husband.
They downplay it for sure, but we have seen enough of I Spit on Your Grave and all sorts of rape movies in this project that it's like, no, let's call it what it is. That was everything but penetration on screen.
But it's all played off aftermath-wise. She's been seduced. And leaves her husband because she's been empowered. I know what a real man is. What, Kramer was a real man?
And that's the catalyst for the one person in the movie who you could probably label as protagonist is kind of generous, I think. There really isn't a protagonist in this movie.
There's multiple individuals. The protagonist in this film is a multifaceted thing, and each facet of the protagonist is portrayed by a different character. And that's where Griffin comes into play, because he ultimately is the final presentation of the protagonist, because he shows up at the end of the film at the park with Ella and says, tell him.
And his scene where he has this confrontation with the Shat, and the breakdown where he absolutely just destroys him and just tears him down is like, you're a little man with little dreams and you mean nothing to me. And even though you made my wife go away, you're still a piece of shit. I'll get over this, but you in the morning will be you.
When Griffin comes to confront Kramer about Griffin's wife leaving him, he has Kramer's gun. It's like, Kramer, you dunderhead, you left, what?
But then the gun is instrumental in proving how little of a man the Shat is, because he's like, oh, you're not worth the trouble holding the gun on the Shat, throws it on the couch, and he goes over to commiserate over losing his wife. The Shat grabs it, points it at him, and is like, okay, I'm going to fucking do you. And he's like, all right, do me. And I'm going to count to 5. 1, 2, 3, and then he finishes up 3, 4, 5. And he can't pull the trigger.
Yeah.
And he's like, that's right, you're a little man with little dreams.
He holds out his hand, there's the bullets. And he just
calls Shatner's bluff, but, have insurance in your pocket just in case he does have enough balls to make the move.
Yeah. Another scene that for me had that, oh no, really? And that's the girl luring Joey into the closet.
The catalyst for the end of the movie is thusly. So Joey has been having integration problems this whole movie long, but he's kind of hooking up with the newspaper man's girl. And so she's all like, oh, I need some help. Come down to the basement for me, because she's setting a trap, because Kramer and the militant people in town are like, okay, let's, take care of this nigger once and for all. And so she goes and is like, I need some help get some stuff off the shelf. Come help me. And I instantly think, it's like, dude, what the fuck are you thinking? This is such obviously a trap. And even if it wasn't a trap, this is such a bad, don't be alone with a white woman.
And he did it.
And that sets off the white racist who said, oh my God, you raped this girl, even though she just claims she was raped. But, she comes running out, oh, he touched me, he raped me, black man raped me, blah, blah, blah. And then all the white racists come in and start taking him out to the swing set outside to lynch him straight up.
Yeah. They put him standing on the swing set, on the seat, and they're tying him to the chains, and they're swinging him back and forth. A noose would have appeared around his neck, over the top of the swing, or whatever, but...
Well, these people are, well, like we said, they're essentially, the locals, and I can't imagine that it would have taken a lot to incite the locals anyway, so them getting ginned up for a climax of a movie, okay, I can totally see that.
This is where Griffin shows up with Ella, because Griffin and Ella have had a conversation, aside from that, where he's found out...
This is bullshit, and dude, you can't let this happen.
Yeah, her guilt is just raging at this point. And not only because of what she's... The lie she is told about Joey, but the fact that her father has been seriously fucked up. The preacher earlier dies in the bombing of the church. She's now, I can't do this. So she gets brought forward. Griffin says, tell them it was a lie. She's crying, and everyone's like, it was a lie? Nothing happened to you? And at that point, the people who were iffy are like, I'm out of here. The people who aren't quite iffy yet are still hanging on a bit. And as the dialogue starts getting around, and the other people are like, I got something else to do. they start breaking off. The crowd dwindles down to nothing. And it's just Kramer and Griffin.
I loved the shot of the, so Kramer's like pats him on the shoulders like, look, do you need bus fare to get out of town? I'll give you bus fare to get out of town. And then he takes the bullets like, here, I don't want to steal from you. Take this back. And drops the bullets on the ground.
Well, he drops the bullets into Kramer's hand. And Kramer just like slowly rolls his hand and they fall to the ground.
And the last shot of the movie is Kramer sitting there on the grass, kind of just, and this is when Shatner goes big. And this is appropriate for Shatner going big. And he's just broken down on there, and he just walks away, and the end's like, dude, you are not worth my fucking time, and just leaves.
Earlier in the film, it happens there, and it happens again here. And it's got a poignant thing. Where Griffin confronts Kramer, initially, he calls him boy.
Yeah.
And here, again, I don't want to have, be caught, stealing from you, boy. Just like, because it's this, the juxtaposition of what have the whites been calling black men? Black men.
Boy.
And here, this Griffin is just like, boy, right Kramer's like,
And the way the movie ends, I thought was interesting because there isn't a white knight on a horse riding in to save the day, and they hug, and all the citizens, black and white, hold hands and sing Kumbaya. It's, I guess this black guy didn't rape this white chick. Okay, let's go back to our lives. They get up tomorrow, and they're just going to be as racist as fuck tomorrow as they are today. So nothing was solved, and everything is pretty much status quo, except for the Shatner being destroyed.
Yeah. The mindset was very protective. In reality, the protective mindset involved in this production was they couldn't, Corman knew and everybody else knew that there was things that they had to keep low-key, they couldn't talk about, because the townspeople didn't want any of this brought up.
This is the era where, we're still getting stuff like Emmett Till happening.
Yeah.
So even though they're like, no, this isn't, no, we don't want this to happen. We don't want this portrayed on film. That shit was still happening.
Yeah. There was a lot going on in the film where they were having to be sneaky. So there's a bit where they have the cross in the car, and the guys are with the KKK, they're in the white KKK robes, and they had to do that on the lowdown, sly, small number of people, small crew, because they had to get the shot and get the fuck out.
Let's talk about the scene where Shatner is on the steps of the courthouse stirring up the locals. I thought the scene, trickery aside of how they shot it, was actually really powerful because, okay, you had the Leggy Rosenthal looking up at him thing to empower power. Okay, fine. But there's no music, there's no ambient sounds other than like just crickets and the Shat doing his dialogue. And it's just Roger Corman being this absolute master of how to stage a scene, how to manipulate emotions without anything.
Shatner's stage experience is really important and utilized at this point.
You go back to what we were saying in the beginning where, okay, Roger Corman is known for just schlock and cheap and fast and give me a movie by the end of the week, here's $1,000.
Yeah.
When he has some time and when he's got even no resources, he can still create. He is criminally underrated as a director.
Yeah, he is. I think it's fantastic that in the past years, he's finally Hollywood's actually like, we owe him.
I guess that's going to be our final thought because, man, we could just go on forever about this fucking thing.
Yeah. But it was from that point on, Corman said, I'm only going to do films for entertainment.
We can do this thing forever and ever and ever. So let's just wrap it up, shall we? So you got a final thought for me there, Ian?
This film isn't entertaining. However, it has that gets a grip on you, so you want to see what it's doing.
It is a criminal offense that this movie isn't in fact on Blu-ray in the States. I think it's out in France somewhere. You can get it there.
Yeah.
But getting into the States is ridiculously hard. So seek this fucker out because it's totally worth it.
Yes.
All right, I guess we'll catch you next week for some more Roger.
It's refreshment time, and our refreshment stand is loaded with good things to eat. There's crispy, crunchy popcorn, and hot, delicious buttered popcorn. Lots of candy, and frosty, refreshing cold drinks. Why not treat yourself at the refreshment center now?
Take that, the Shat! Ha ha ha! Next week, Ian and I, we're going to be wrapping up Roger Corman month by watching the very last movie that he directed. Well, at least as when this recording happened. Dude's 92, probably not going to do another one, but you never know with Roger, so we'll see. Next week, Ian and I are going to be watching Frankenstein Unbound, and it's absolutely fucking batshit insane. So join us here for that. Drop us an email, thevideonastyproject@gmail.com, and until you come back, Firebird, stay evil.
Did you people want to talk to me?